microphone. Okay. Oh, no, let me go back a little. Okay. So although I am the Director of Development for CBH Care, which there's one right here in Lyndhurst and there's one in Hackensack, for 21 years I ran our program, our psychiatric residence for adolescents. So I have a lot of experience working with adolescents, and before that I was the child specialist out of Jersey City Medical Center, psychiatric emergency room. I was the child specialist for the county. So I am also a mom, and I have 3 kids at home, a 12-year-old, sorry, a 16-year-old, and a 17-year-old. So a lot of this stuff is also, I'm going to be going back and forth and talking from kind of a mental health point of view, but also from a parent's point of view, because I think that's really important. And if at any time anyone wants to stop me, please feel free. So this is actually a very similar presentation I gave to Region 5, which is your region? Are you Region 5? Which is a bunch of towns in Bergen County to school personnel. The teachers have a lot on their plate. And I feel as if every year it's more and more. As a parent, I realize that the school has my child more than I have my child during the week. And all of a sudden, mental health is in the schools, which is wonderful. But I also think as parents, we have a big responsibility also to follow up, to find out what's going on at school, and to keep the conversation going. So, the word stress, we're all under stress. And it's a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. Getting up in the morning, getting your kids to school, getting us to work, once you get there, your day, you have a million things to do and there are 10 fires to put out. So we all experience it. And then there's anxiety. These are really interchangeable. A feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. It could be something as simple as taking a test, or it could be something more that you know something's going to happen and you're nervous about it. These are just some anxiety disorders. Worry of being separated from caregivers. Obviously, you see this even more in the lower grades. That's actually very normal, and it's a process for them to go through. But you also see this through kids who, hi, how are you? Come on down. We also see this for kids who, there are things happening at home. There are things going on, there's some uncertainty, maybe there's a divorce, maybe someone's ill. So there could be some extenuating circumstances there as well. Social anxiety. We've been seeing this more and more, the social anxiety, excessively self-conscious, difficult for them to participate in class and socialize with peers. Over the past couple of years, we've seen a lot more school refusals. And these aren't kids typically who are just refusing to come to school. You have that. But we're seeing a lot of children who really are unable to walk through the door. Selective mutism. There's also a rise in this also. Having a hard time speaking in some settings like school or around a teacher. It could also be around a coach. One of my son's friends is selectively mute. He's been that way, they're juniors, since as far back as I can remember. I don't think he's ever said a word to me. He's a good student, and that's his anxiety, and he needs to control something, and that's what he controls. It took a really long time to get there, because teachers just thought he was being belligerent and difficult, and he wasn't. He just has a lot of anxiety. Generalized anxiety, worry about a wide variety of everyday things. They can often worry about school performance and perfectionism. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. Obsessive compulsive disorder can try to alleviate anxiety by performing compulsive rituals. So if someone has obsessive compulsive disorder, that's how they cope. The rituals is how they cope. Either whether it's brushing their hair, washing their hands, turning the lights on and off. Specific phobias. What does anxiety look like? Because let's be honest. We all say, oh, I'm so stressed, or oh, I'm feeling anxious. But what does it really look like? It can mask as many things. It can mask as ADHD. An anxious child can be fidgety and inattentive and not able to focus. That's ADHD. But that can also be somebody who's really anxious. School refusal, which we talked about before. Disruptive behaviors. That's a really, really common one that sometimes we say the child who's really disruptive, we can kind of write them off. They can be the fresh kid. They can be the kid who doesn't want to do anything. But actually, there's other stuff going on with them. Trouble answering questions. Frequent trips to the nurse. Again, I think you see that more in the lower grades, but it still happens because I think once the kids get a little older, the nurses are a little more clued in also. Problems in certain subjects. Not doing homework. Avoiding group work or socialization. 1 in 5 children struggle with a mental health disorder, including anxiety. Anxiety disorders can affect up to 25% of adolescents. Anxiety is the #1 reason college students seek treatment. How many kids are in an average class here?
About 20 to 25, I would say. Some maybe a little bit larger.
Okay, so let's say it's 25. They can look around and those are the numbers. Real anxiety is really, really common, especially I think for today. I grew up in a very different time. I grew up when there wasn't as much pressure as these kids have today. We're going to keep talking about this a lot. And we're going to talk about things that we can do. We can do with our kids. They can do on their own. We can do in the classroom. We can do at home. All of it. Stigma. Stigma is the #1 reason why people don't seek help. When you're a teenager, your #1 focus is to fit in. It's to be part of the norm. You don't want to stand out. You don't want to be on the fringe. You want to be just like everyone else. So stigma is the mark of disgrace, which results from the judgment of others. Stigma brings experiences and feelings of shame, embarrassment, distress, hopelessness, and reluctance to seek help. I know you guys have done a great job being stigma-free. Bourbon County has done a great job. All 70 municipalities are stigma-free. But if you're a child, if you're a teen, and you're having some issues, how likely are you to seek help? How likely are you to say, I think there's a problem? And I will tell you, I'm here quite a bit, talking to the kids. I was just here 2 months ago?
I think so.
I think 2 months ago, I did a suicide awareness presentation for the 10th graders. I was a little worried because sometimes that could be a little in-depth. First of all, they were phenomenal. They were amazing. They paid attention. They raised their hand. They were able to share stuff, and they did a really great job. I think sometimes, just listen to what I just said, this is what I do, and I didn't know if suicide awareness would be a little too much. They're ready. They're ready, and they're ready to start the conversations. Ways to reduce stress. There is so much out there, and it's all common sense, basically. Eat healthy, plenty of fruit and vegetables, maintain a daily schedule. That's really important for kids. It's really important to maintain a schedule for continuity and structure. I will tell you, in all of my years at the group home, we had 15 to 17-year-olds who had psychiatric and behavioral needs. The number one thing that I will say is structure. Structure was one of the most important things. It's something they rely on. They know what's coming next. There isn't that sitting on the edge of your seat and waiting. So try and provide as much structure as you can and as much consistency. I know that we have a really wacky world and we're all really busy, but that's okay. You could still have, like Mondays you know you have to go to football. Tuesdays you know you have to do this. It's okay. Just try and maintain some kind of structure in your home. Exercise regularly. That could just mean going for a walk. That could just mean going outside, walking around the block, just getting yourself moving. Avoid caffeine. Do things you enjoy. Get enough rest and sleep. Avoid tobacco, alcohol, and drugs. Decrease negative self-talk. Humor and laughter. We're going to talk about negative self-talk in a minute also. Turn off. I have big issues with all the social media. I think we're all learning about it, and I think their generation is far different, obviously, than we were. I didn't have any of it. They never turn off. They never stop. When my two boys were younger, they went up to bed at 10 o'clock, and they had to hand in their phones. And initially, there was a lot of hamming and hawing, and I was the only one who did this, and you're smiling. Absolutely. Yeah, everybody else gets to keep their phone. But I will tell you, they're sleeping next to their phone, and all you hear all night is ping, 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 and it goes, the lights flashing on and off. You really aren't getting a full night's sleep with that. There's also something really healthy about just turning off. There's a lot of stress in those phones, a lot of stress. I think it's too new for us to really know what the ramifications are. I just went to a conference, and it was called Suicide and Social Media. And I thought, here's the answer. There weren't any answers. There's just as many studies for social media as there are as many studies against. I think that there has to be a balance. I will tell you, there is a new movement called Wait for Eighth, and it's trying to hold off the kids having phones till 8th grade. I have a 7th grader, and I lasted till this Christmas because I realized that suddenly it was about me and it wasn't about her. And we had a long conversation about the phone. I don't know any of the apps, so we have to sit down together and go over all of them and see what is appropriate and what isn't. We've all heard horror stories. We have all heard things. In my daughter's school last year in 6th grade, they all ganged up on one girl, and it was something so silly, but they wouldn't let it go. And it kept going and going and going, and the girl started to refuse to go to school. I think she didn't go to school for about a month, but for about 3 months she was having stomach aches, she didn't want to go. And for parents, this is really hard for us to navigate because we don't know. So it's okay to turn off. Dinner table is another one. Phones are not allowed at the dinner table in my house. And again, it's really difficult. There's a lot of pushback, but that is the way that it is. I think at a certain age, you have to just have a conversation with them because they have to make choices and they have to follow through with the ramifications, but we always have to keep communication open. How to help children with anxiety. Practice deep breathing, relaxation techniques, guided meditation. There are a lot of free apps also online that you can download, and they can walk you through. Take a break, go outside, talk openly about anxiety, get kids moving, walking and talking. Gratitude, read a story, offer individual accommodations, and find one adult. I'm going to go back up for a second. So on my wall at work, a lot of times it's a lot of stress, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot going on. So I typed out 3 things, 3 questions. We didn't really do it, but we're going to start again. And it was 3 questions about, do you know what they were? No, what made your heart happy? What did you find? What motivated you? So basically, it's just now focusing on something positive and trying to see, like, where was your day? Because in all of the moving around and the stress and I have to do this, I have to do that, there are positives. It's just we don't stop to see what they are. Walking and talking. When you're walking and you're talking to someone, you're not thinking about all the other things. You're walking and you're talking, and you're there, and you're centered, and you're present. When I first started this, I used to do a presentation on mindfulness. My daughter is 12, she's 12, she's in 7th grade, this is her first year of middle school. She doesn't know how to identify her emotions very well. And my husband's a social worker. So she has a really hard time telling you if it's something that doesn't feel good. And at night sometimes her mind is racing and she has difficulty falling asleep and relaxing. So I started printing out guided relaxation, guided meditations, and I would do them with her because then I would do them on kids in high schools and stuff. And I would say to her, like, I wanted to see how it would be. Every time we did it, she was like, good night, Mom. And it was easy, and off she went. It's just a way of bringing down. And I think sometimes our kids don't know how to do that. They don't know how to just bring themselves down, because up until they go to bed, they're going. They're on their phones, they're doing homework, they're going, they're answering stuff. So sometimes they might need help in bringing it all together and calming. Find one adult. All the studies have shown that children who have issues, children who are in congregate care, as long as they can identify one adult that they feel comfortable with, they can reach out to, they can connect with, and they can talk to, I think their success rate is something like 80%. So finding that one person, I realize that for my daughter, it's actually not me, it's my sister, and I'm okay with that. As long as there's one, because they need to be able to feel comfortable to express themselves. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is the buzzword. I know people are like, oh, mindfulness. Mindfulness is just being present. They use a lot of mindfulness for people who are also having anxiety attacks. It's letting go of all judgment and just being present. Here's a definition. Deliberately paying attention to things we normally would not even notice, and becoming aware of our present moment experience as it arises, non-judgmentally and with kindness and compassion, paying attention to what's happening in our mind and our body, to our thoughts, the stories we tell ourselves, as well as to emotions and physical sensations as they arise. We all do this. A couple of months ago, someone had asked me to do a presentation. And I didn't answer her back. There was some just miscommunication and our wires kept getting crossed. I felt really badly about it, and I went to a function and I saw her there, and she didn't say hello. In my mind, I was like, she thinks I'm irresponsible, I didn't follow through, she's not going to call us anymore. I had this whole conversation in my head, which was so negative and causing me so much anxiety and worry. And when I finally did reach out to her, that was not the conversation at all. And she said, I've been waiting for you, I really want you to do this presentation for us. And I thought, how much time did I waste with the negative talk? So it's not just kids, it's all of us. It's all of us to be aware of. We have a coworker, and recently he was having a really hard time, and he was explaining to me that due to his negative self-talk, he had a full-blown anxiety attack. And he had to pull over, and as he was talking to me and telling me about his experience, I thought, oh, you practice mindfulness. He had to pull over on the side of the road and just feel what he was feeling. Not pass any judgment on himself, not think, why am I doing this? But he just had to feel it. He had to feel what was going on in his body, what was going on in his mind, and what happens is, because he was present, he was able just to work through it, and then he was able to verbalize and process it. So mindfulness takes on a lot of different forms. You can take a mindful shower. How many times have we all driven to work, or driven home, or driven to the grocery store, whatever it is, and we get there and we think, I don't remember driving. Because our mind is in a million different directions. So instead of that, practice mindfulness. Take a shower, and while you're in the shower, feel the water, feel the heat. Close your eyes, feel how good it is, feel the water on you, and that's just being mindful. There's also mindful communication. How many times I am guilty of this, that my kids are talking to me, but I'm trying to get dinner on the table, so I'm listening, but am I really listening? And we need to stop, and we need to pay attention and be there. Not cut them off, not try and answer conversations for them, but be present and hear what they have to say. This is just part of classroom practice. This could also be at home as well. Building strong relationships, warmth and engagement, respectfulness, expectation. Kids expect expectations on them. The warmth and engagement. I count on my teacher, you could say parent, to help me if I have a problem. Respect. My teacher believes that I have a right to my own point of view, or parent. Expectation. My teacher or parent expects me to do my best, even though it may be challenging. There's another program called the Nurtured Heart Approach. It's a very long, lengthy thing, but what I took away from it is moving away from, hey, good job. Hey, I'm really proud of you. And instead, finding what are you really proud of. My example here is my stepson came to live with us a few years ago. His mom had passed away. It was a very, very rough time for the first year. And he would try to bait me almost on a daily basis. And it was getting really, really hard for me to always be the bigger person, to always have that hat on. And one day, as he was kind of making fun of everything I was saying, and everyone was laughing, it was actually bordering on a little disrespect. I took a deep breath and I looked at him and I said, do you know what I love about you? I said, I love that no matter what the situation is, you're able to make everybody laugh. And he looked at me and he waited for the but. And there wasn't one. And he sat up a little taller, and the rest of the day went wonderfully. I felt really badly because I thought, is that all it takes? It's the nurture heart approach is I see you. I see you, you're here, and I'm glad you're here. For example, let's say the kids are, actually I can give you an example with the kids. There was a boy this summer, I was doing a presentation, and he really had no desire to be there, and it was very obvious. And I looked at him and I said, listen, I appreciate that although you don't want to be here, you're able to sit and you're being really respectful. I said, that tells me something about your character, and you're a good kid. And for the rest of the time, he took off his hoodie and he sat there. He didn't want to be there, that was okay. But he was respectful, he watched, he faced forward. When he was done listening, he just put his head down. But I saw him. I didn't mark him off as a troublemaker. I didn't reprimand him. I let him know that, hey, you have strengths too, and I see your strengths. And it's okay if you want to just sit back. Family home life, which this is the big thing. As parents, a lot of times we have to be the bad guy, and we are the enforcer of rules. And rules are really important. Children need rules. Not that they need rules like they're in jail, but they need boundaries. They learn boundaries from us that they will use for the rest of their life. Trust. They need to trust us. They need to feel comfortable. They need to feel supported. They need to have expectations. Here's part of the issue. The expectations in most of Bergen County are also really big. So find your expectations and make expectations that your child can handle. I feel like in Bergen County, our expectations about college, about what you're doing, about being perfect if you're playing a sport, we put a lot of that on our children. So make sure the expectations you do have on your child are ones that they can meet. Not judgment. If your child comes to you and they say whatever, they need to know that they're not going to get judged. They need to know that no matter what, you're open and you can hear them. Responsibility. They all need responsibilities. If we don't give them responsibilities now, when they go to college, if they go away to college, if they get a job, if they get their own place, how do we expect them to live a good life and to be able to function as an adult? Relationship, of course, is utmost important is relationship. You need to have relationships with your kids. They're not always going to like you, that's okay, but your relationship is really important. And communication. There always has to be open communication. Sometimes you need to discuss things that aren't really that comfortable at home, but have the discussions. You need to talk about drugs, you need to talk about alcohol. As they get older, you need to start talking about sex and sexuality. These are all conversations that are not comfortable for most of us as parents, but they're really important because they might go out there and they may do things anyway or make poor choices, but if you've already had the conversations, you've laid the groundwork, and they know they can come say something. I'm going to go back to the phone for a second. My daughter was not allowed to download any apps until we went over it. I found out that she downloaded Snapchat. And I said to her, now you're going to lose the phone. The deal was no downloading apps. And she said, but you would have said no anyway. I said, but we didn't have a conversation. I said, I have never ever said no without explaining it or without having a conversation. So it was a learning moment for her, but it was also a learning moment for me. That because she thought she knew what my answer was going to be, she made her own decision. So that was a conversation that we had. And actually, we all ended up talking about it because I don't know anything about Snapchat. So my sons came into the conversation also, and then it turned into being safe with social media. My boys in high school think they know everything, and they think they have all the answers. But we went over all different scenarios because they think that our worry is more of someone's going to kidnap them. I said, no, that's not the only worry. The worry is you put something out there, and it's out there. And you think you're sending it to one person, and you're not. And you don't know how many people they're sending things to. So it started a really good conversation, which I probably should have had long ago. But again, have the conversations, no matter how difficult you may think they are. Actually, that is it. Does anyone have any questions? Does anybody have any concerns about ages or anything? Mm-hmm.
What's the youngest age you see people, I would say, like, on a regular basis? And what do you do, like, in terms of mental health? Like, listen, I'm a parent, I have 3 little ones. My oldest is in 2nd grade, so do I need to start? Like, I feel like I not with him per se, but just, I feel like it's there. It's time, if not already.
It's absolutely there. Again, start the conversations. I don't think you're ever too young. I think we see more adolescents for a number of reasons. First of all, that's the hardest time of your life. There are so many changes going on. There's so much pressure from peers, from parents, from school. They get it from everywhere. So I think we see more kids who are older. Also, you identify it more when they're older. When they're younger, they're usually easier to kind of get them going. I will tell you, we've seen younger. I went into a school and did a full-day presentation starting in kindergarten. And it was because of the lockdowns. This is a part of their life that is really hard. It's hard for me to swallow as a parent, but this is the way our world is right now. So there's a lot of conversation around that. I had went to a school and I asked the children, why am I here? And they said, so somebody doesn't come in and shoot us. And I said, no. So we did a lot of breathing, we did a lot of mindfulness, but now you have the programs coming from the prosecutor's office. And the kids, although they're getting used to them, that causes anxiety also. And that's from little all the way up. So there are a lot of things. I think when children are little, we talk about bullying, but it happens. And it happens at a very young age. You know who the children are, who may be a little rougher or stuff is going on. I will tell you, I'm also a Girl Scout leader. And initially, as the years went on, every year I would say to my daughter, are we done? And every year she would say no. And now that she's in 7th grade, I'm so happy she stayed in it because I am able to work with a group of girls who talk really freely about what's going on. Or if they're not talking freely, you're kind of standing on the periphery and you're listening. About what's going on and what they go through. I think that we don't understand something as little as the pressure of starting school, getting to classes on time, and trying to get to your locker without being late. So something that's so simple that we think, oh, could cause a lot of children's stress and anxiety. So I think in answer to your question, sorry, in a roundabout way, I think it starts at any age. I think that having structure in the household, again, is very important. There should be a set bedtime. My children always went to bed early. They could stay up for a little while. They could read if they wanted, but it was their time, and I needed my time as well, my husband and I. And that was their time to just kind of let go of the day and then fall asleep. I think that we need to teach our children also about being safe and about being comfortable on the inside as well as the outside. I think that it sounds a little shticky, but there's no health without mental health. That is so true, and more so now than ever. But that goes for us as well. Yes, it's really important. It's really important to help our children be able to handle stressors, to be able to navigate the social media, to be able to navigate their peers. But it's really important for all of us because we set the example. Whether we are a parent, we work in a school, a Girl Scout leader, a Boy Scout leader, a coach, if you're working with a child in any capacity, they're looking at us as the example, and that's what they follow. So we need to practice healthy living as well, and wellness, and taking time for ourselves, so they can see that it's okay. It's okay for me to take time for me. It's okay for me to do things that I like. It's okay for me to relax and have downtime. And it's okay to have conversations. Anything else? Mm-hmm.
When you sent your daughter down in the chat and said that, her response was, well, I did it because I knew you were going to say no. And I hear that a lot. Like, how did you?
I will tell you. I will tell you, she, as I said before, she's not a child who connects with her emotions very well. For me, it became more about a lie, and you weren't able to be honest with me.
Because that was my reaction.
Absolutely. So she went in her room, she cried for about an hour. I set my husband up, and then she said, leave me alone. We left her alone, and then later on, I said, are you ready? But that's the dance I honestly play with my daughter. One of my boys will say, Mom, I'm so sorry. And I know he means it with his heart. She's a little tougher, and she needs her space. She often needs to cry it out. She needs to, I think, go in her head that she doesn't like me and I'm the worst. And then usually she'll come downstairs and say, okay, I'm ready to talk. I do not raise my voice, which sometimes is hard. And I said to her, like what I said before, we didn't have the conversation. And it's so important for me to trust you, just like it's important for you to trust me. How would you feel if I lied? How would you feel if your friends lied? And then we segued into that. My friends always lie, and we talked about that for a while. But what it came down to is she understood. But what it also came down to is I have to be flexible. So I said to her this weekend, we're going to look at Snapchat together, and if you do download it, you have to friend me. Don't misunderstand me, part of me is like this. And I just hope it goes right. But I think if we take a stance sometimes on absolutely no because I said so, and you're going to do it anyway, not only are you not going to win, but then what's the message you're sending? Speak behind my back. And I'm not saying to give in all the time, and that's another conversation at the end that I talked about, that said, you're not always going to like what I have to say, and you're not going to be happy with my decisions. And I'm not always going to be happy. One of the things I did say was, I wanted you to wait till 8th grade for a phone. But I bent on that. and Daddy and I were flexible, and we gave you the phone, but now you have responsibility as well. And there has to be clear consequences also, that if they do whatever, and you can tell them beforehand, so they know, it's not a surprise. So all the screaming and yelling, you can say, I told you, if you did X, Y, and Z, then you are going to lose the phone for 3 nights. So it's very clear and concrete for them. Do you have the same problem at home?
But I think I'm starting to learn now is that I had mottos and guidelines, and they weren't clear enough. And I actually got called out and said, this whole, well, yeah, I know I wasn't supposed to do that, but like this time, are you gonna grab me for this? Are you gonna do this? Like, how long? And I'm like, yeah, okay, so I wasn't clear enough. But I think it's something, trying to be flexible is hard.
How old is your child?
At 12 and 16.
Understand that as an adolescent, their job is to try and manipulate you. Their job is to try and get away with as much as they can. Our job is to give them the boundaries, to let them know the parameters. Because when they go to college, away, home, job, whatever, we will all have boundaries. We do all have boundaries. So we're starting their lessons in our house. So try and be as concrete. So you heard it. Good for you. Anybody else?
What do you do when they shut you out or they go away or talk is don't come back around because you know okay, I'm ready now. But
You could just keep trying. And it doesn't have to be a big conversation. It could be something really little. It could be maybe doing something with them. Like, hey, I'm going to bake, or hey, I'm going to go to the mall, do you want to go? And starting really small. Is there someone, is it your son or daughter? Is there someone your son does connect with and talk to?
not a specific person, maybe, and sometimes talk to my daughter and they, knows some stuff, but I think he goes through a mood where he just says, leave me alone, go away.
Well, so actually, one of my sons, the one who I said apologizes, I will tell you sometimes I harp on them, I admit it, and he will say to me, Mom, back off. And that's when I realize I've gone too far. And I'll walk away. Meanwhile, I want to say, who are you talking to? And I will back off. And then I'll wait, sometimes hours, sometimes a day, and I'll try and bring it up. Keep trying to bring it up. Another thing I did at the dinner table, which my boys really weren't happy about this, but what was the highlight of your day? What was the low point of your day? And they fought me on it for so long, but then it kind of became the norm. It's hard to keep it going. I lose it too. But you could do things that way. Like, tell me if you're at the dinner table or in the car. Tell me, we're going to start something different. Tell me one good thing that happened today. In the beginning, they'll say, I got up. Or whatever it is. Yes. What's one bad thing? I went to school. Fine. And then as they start to talk sometimes, they'll give you a little bit more and a little bit more. I try to do all different things at home because, and every time they're like rolling their eyes and like, really, Mom, here we go again. But I think it's important. I think sometimes it could start conversations, but I also think sometimes it allows you to see things that you wouldn't have seen before. Is that helpful? Okay. Anyone else?
How do you properly diagnose an anxiety versus an ADHD? Did you say that?
That would be a psychiatrist. That would be a psychiatrist who would see them and go through all the testing and stuff and ask tons of questions. And then they would treat it whichever way they thought. But it's hard because there's a lot of crossover. I will tell you there's also a lot of crossover with adolescents and borderline personality disorder and sometimes bipolar disorder. Like adolescents are a really, really hard time. So there are a lot of different mental illnesses that mask as other things also. And I think that something that I hope everyone will also take away is with mental illness, the focus is really on recovery. It's not a life sentence, it's not for life. It's the focus is on recovery, that you know what, maybe I'm in a really bad place right now, but if I get the appropriate help, I don't have to stay here. There is, I don't know if everybody's heard of mental health first aid. Okay, there are two different programs of mental health and first aid. And it's just teaching, the one is just teaching the average layperson what to do in case you see someone in a crisis. And there's also one for adults who work with youth of what to look for, mostly adolescents. There's also another one that is being piloted right now. Actually, it starts next week. And it's the only school being piloted in the tri-state area. And it's actually teaching kids what to look for. It's teaching kids how to help each other. It's giving them the tools to work with so they know what to do. Because I think for us, a lot of us, mental illness, anxiety, any of those labels are so insurmountable that we don't know where to start. But I think that's because we didn't have the conversations. It wasn't something that we spoke about. I remember being an adolescent and walking downstairs and saying to my parents, they're lovely people, and saying, you know, I think I need to see a therapist. And my father looked at me and said, are you crazy? And I went in my room and cried, and that was the end of the conversation. I don't think that it's something that we're comfortable with. But now it's all out there for the kids. They talk about mental health, they talk about wellness, they talk about stigma as it relates to mental health. And I think that they're going to be much far better off than we were. Because it's going to be a part of their vernacular, and it's going to be something that they're not, hopefully, going to be afraid of. Any other questions? Comments, anything? Okay. Up there are some stress balls. I'm from CBH here. We have a lot of different programs. We have after-school programs for adolescents. We also have, it's a therapeutic after-school program, but there's also a program for children who function at a little bit lower level as well. So there are talk groups and there are concrete groups and skills-based groups. We have therapy, we have residential, and the way that you get to all of those is through access. So I brought some cards if anybody's interested. I also brought my cards. If anybody has any questions that they want to ask, if they're not comfortable asking, you can certainly reach out to me. And you can